there is one large section of federal land where you still cannot have a firearm. And believe it or not, it's lands governed and run by the Army Corps of Engineers. We're talking 12 million acres, 400 lakes, 100,000 campsites, dams, levees, and everything else. You cannot go there with your firearm. Well, joining me right now is Idaho Senator Crapo, Mike Crapo. And Senator, you're trying to do something about that.
Yes, I am. I appreciated you mentioning the fact that we've had these same kind of battles over the years with the Department of Interior and the Department of Agriculture, but it is now law that you may carry a firearm on lands managed by Interior and Agriculture, including our national parks and our national forests. But we've tried and unfortunately haven't succeeded for a number of years now to get that same protection extended to lands managed by the Army Corps of Engineers. And you're right, they manage a phenomenal amount of campsites and other recreational areas where they are barring the utilization of firearms to law-abiding citizens who may be camping or engaging in other activities.
Right. I mean, you may be out on your boat. You may be just walking around a lakefront somewhere. You may not even be aware sometimes that you're on Corps of Engineer land. And, I mean, they're serious about this. Even if you have a concealed carry permit, even if you're in a state that has constitutional carry, you can't carry there. What is it about this that makes it so difficult? We were able to get it done in other federal lands. What's the problem with the Corps?
Well, before I answer that question, let me say, just thinking about Idaho, if you just so bring this home to folks in Idaho, Lake Pend Oreille has 8 sites managed by the Corps. Dworshak Reservoir has 13 sites. Lower Granite Lake has 15 sites. Lucky Peak Lake has 8 sites. And folks who go to those places are not able to carry a firearm legally. The reason it's been hard is because the Corps of Engineers claims that they have facilities on or near these sites. For example, dam visitor centers or other facilities like the dams themselves or the powerhouses, and that they have a responsibility to keep those facilities safe. And in order to do so, they have to have the ability to prohibit people from carrying a firearm anywhere on any of their facilities. It's just a huge overreach on their part. I don't think that most people would object if they said you can't go into the headquarters of the dam, you can't go into the power supply buildings of a dam with a firearm. I personally don't have any objection to that at all. But they are extending this ban to every bit of the property that they manage. And that argument that they make is the one that has made it harder to get the changes made than in the forests and in the interior lands, the grasslands.
Interesting. But of course, to your point, for instance, on national park lands, you can't go into the federal buildings there with your gun, but you can carry on to the national park lands. Same, with a lot of federal facilities out there. So no reason you couldn't do the same thing on Corps lands. No,
there's no reason at all that you couldn't do that. And their excuse just doesn't hold up. But so far, we just haven't. Another thing that has slowed us down is we haven't had the politics. This legislation has been filibustered when the Republicans were in control and were bringing the legislation along. With the Democrats in control, they won't even move it forward for a vote. So we continue to push. We do have some, not many, but some supporters of the Second Amendment on the other side.
Let me ask you, is there anything that the folks out here can do, and maybe contacting their representatives, their senators, to say, hey, we need some action going on this?
Yes, there is, and that's exactly what they should do. Everybody has a circle of influences, which is what I call it. They've got their family and friends and business associates and others with whom they keep in communication, whether it's Twitter tweets or Facebook friends or whatever social media they use. And we frankly need people across the 50 states to be contacting their senators and their congressmen and saying they want this legislation passed. When that happens on a large scale, we can get it done. But it's, grassroots politics still work. And so I just encourage people to believe that and to engage in it.
Excellent. Let me switch just for a second. The Biden administration came in promising all sorts of repressive gun control laws to be passed. So far, they've been able to do absolutely nothing, other than they did do a kind of an interesting deal with the State Department and blocking the importation of ammunition, which is actually going to be more impactful than a lot of people have realized so far. But it seems as though in Congress, there's really no appetite for more gun control.
Well, there isn't. And the reason is just what I mentioned before. There probably are enough votes to pressure it through in the House. I don't know. They've only got a very small margin in the House, and they may be able to get that in the Senate. But the Senate still has its filibuster. And as long as we've got a filibuster, they just can't get anything done. You are right, though, that the administration can do some things itself. You mentioned stopping the imports of ammunition that President Biden did was to give a notice of a proposed rulemaking that would target pistol braces. Senator Risch and I have joined 46 of our colleagues in sending a letter to the president urging the administration to rescind that notice of rulemaking. But frankly, there are things that they can try to get done through rulemaking or through just executive decisions. But that's the area they're limited to right now. And so far, they haven't really even been able to get much traction on that as well.
I also just have to comment, we have just in a couple of weeks, the Supreme Court is going to hear a very important case on Second Amendment, New York Rifle and Pistol Association case versus New York. And as we look at that and look at the difference it makes when you look at the makeup of the court today versus, say, a couple of years ago, it brings back that old phrase of elections have consequences. And in this case, thank goodness.
Yeah, that's true. And, I don't know how this case will turn out. I have the same hopes that all Second Amendment gun owners do. But remember, it was essentially this court. It might have been a little bit different dynamic because this case is a few years old now, but ruled that, in fact, the Second Amendment right to bear arms is a right that every individual has. This is not, the argument against it was, no, this is just for state-sponsored militia. It's now law that every individual has that right to bear arms. And that gives this next case some significant importance because they will start defining in this next case what the extent of restrictions states can put on those rights. I should tell you, though, the states like New York, the rules that they have been putting in place to try to interfere with that right have been getting struck down quite often in the courts. And so I'm very hopeful that this next case from the Supreme Court will set another protective parameter around the right to bear arms.
Senator Mike Crapo, thank you so much for joining us here and also for the activism that you show and the leadership you show on Second Amendment. All right, Idaho Senator Mike Crapo joined